Well, it's been a big week here in Next Year Country, our Northern Ag Network crew on our For the Farmers tour, where we're covering a lot of the state of Montana. And this year, in our fourth annual For the Farmers tour, we got to visit Great Falls and Conrad, talking with farmers in the Golden Triangle, and with a great number of sponsors, just saying thank you for what they do to not only feed the world, but also drive our rural economies. Coulter Brown here with Next Year Country, and we've got a special episode for you, coming to you live from the Sip and Dip Lounge in Great Falls. Stay tuned for Next Year Country. Of course, this episode sponsored by BNSF Railway. As harvest ramps up, BNSF reminds everyone to stay alert at crossings. Their continued investment in rail safety helps protect communities and keep Montana agriculture moving. We're starting things off, like I mentioned, at the Sip and Dip Lounge. The mermaids are swimming. Thankfully, Colton Young not in the pool. He's co-hosting with me today.
Yep. My shift's not till later on this evening, so I'll stay out here and we'll host the podcast first.
Well, good. And we've got a few guests. Actually, our cohorts at Northern Ag Network, Amelia Siroky and Courtney Kibblewhite, stepping in front of the microphone.
Hey,
for a
guys.
change.
We are also not going to be swimming tonight.
That's what they all say before they have a fishbowl.
This is probably the first and only podcast recorded from the Sip and Dip.
Gotta be the first. I don't know.
I sure hope so. I still think we could try to get one of the mermaids on, and then that's the photo, that you use the mermaid on the podcast.
I wanted to be doing this from Piano Pat's chair inside the Sip and Dip. The noise level, there was just too much fun in the Sip and Dip. So we're here at the Tiki Bar, but boy, it is a lot of fun. And the reason we asked Courtney and Amelia to help us kick things off is because the For the Farmers tour, really their brainchild. They're the ones that put so much work into planning us. Colton and I are just kind of along for the ride, along to visit with farmers and see some fields. So we thought it'd be a good chance to have you guys on and kind of explain what this is. And so when you're talking to folks and you're telling about the For the Farmers tour, how do you describe it?
Honestly, we usually are telling people it's just a great way to give back and bring a little bit of positivity and gratitude to farmers. It's been, especially in the Golden Triangle, it's been a really rough couple of years, and they need a little bit of positivity. So it's a great way for sponsors to say thank you and just uplift growers and just show some appreciation.
Well, and the other thing that I think about is when you're working in a commodity, you don't necessarily have a lot of interaction with the rest of the other people that are, harvesting and growing what you are. And so to be able to bring people together and truly connect, there's a number of agribusinesses that have really stepped up here, and they want to tell farmers thank you. It means something that you're continuing to grow in your community, that you're not selling out, that it matters what you do, and you may not get somebody thanking you for on a daily basis. It's not a direct to consumer type of business. So these businesses have stepped up to do that, and it's really cool, really fun to see.
Well, and I think that's one of the exciting parts for all the agribusinesses and the sponsors is they're coming out here not for a business transaction. 90% of the time when they're talking with the grower, talking with the producer, it's, okay, here's your product, or, oh, you need more of this, you need more of that, what's the transaction? This time they're coming out bearing gifts and saying thanks, and it's just a kind of a heartfelt feeling for everybody to be a part of.
I told my sponsors, a grower will never forget you when you bring them a 30 rack of beer in the field. They will never forget you. So I think we made a lot of good memories today.
We sure did. And I want to just kind of explain to folks listening, you didn't get to be on the tour, what happened here today. And so we started the morning at the Helena Agri-Enterprises plant there just outside of Great Falls with the Voices of Montana talk show. So Tom Schultz hosted, allowed Colton and I to kind of jump on air a little bit. And I thought that was an impactful conversation about where Montana agriculture sits right now, particularly the farming industry. We had Mitch Conan from the National Barley Growers talking about the challenges facing the barley industry. How do we build consumption and markets for barley? Eric Sommerfeld from Power came and talked about right to repair and what they're doing with Montana Farmers Union and the new safflower plant in Great Falls. And then Lee Dahlman from the Wheat and Barley Committee talked about their efforts in research and building export markets for Montana's crops. And then Steve Sheffels not only hosted one of our stops today, but also came on the show, of course, president of Montana Grain Growers. And Steve talked about everything from the growing season to some of the farm policy discussions with the Farm Bill. So I thought just starting out, the first hour was pretty impactful.
Very impactful, and I loved Voices of Montana and what Tom Schultz can do with the show, because yes, we're out here on the For the Farmers tour. A lot of the Northern Ag Network crew is out here, but to be able to bring the statewide news, the Northern News Network, and relate what we're doing to a statewide audience. We didn't just talk about we're in Great Falls. We talked about ag issues across the state. We talked about challenges. We talked with leaders from Montana on the national level, on the state level, and what they're doing to make sure farmers, producers, and the entire supply chain are working efficiently together for agriculture. It's just so fun to have Tom come down and to be able to tie kind of the Northern Ag side and the Northern News side together and be able to come together and celebrate farmers as a whole.
You bet. Amelia, you worked with a number of sponsors who wanted to be a part of this deal. Talk about, I guess, first off, who those sponsors are, but why? Why do they want to support something like this?
Yeah, honestly, there's several sponsors, and they all kind of had a common theme, common goal. They wanted to say thank you. They wanted to show their appreciation and show up for farmers in a different way. So our title sponsor this year was Helena, which was amazing to have them host this morning. They also helped us organize a lot of the grower stops, which was incredible. We got to go to 6 stops today. We also have sponsors like Montana Seed Trade Association, which we got to hear multiple times today, how important certified seed is. CHS Big Sky. We've got Gowan. We brought them Coors products. So we had an ice cold Coors Light and Coors Banquet on the tour. Honestly, tons of sponsors, and it seems like every year we grow it. People get to see it on social media, and the next year we've got somebody else calling, asking, how do I get involved? How do I do this?
I would say that's the big growth thing. And Courtney, I want to ask you this question. Now that we're in the 4th year of the For the Farmers Tour, yes, we have a lot of repeat sponsors and supporters, but we also have a lot of new supporters coming in as well. What have been your conversations with some of those that are just coming on? They say, well, we saw it last year, and now we're coming on. And then you also have the sponsors that have been here all 4 years.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I got to ride with a Tyrama, who has one of their dealers alliance with them. And it was interesting talking about some of the consolidation in the tire business. You see a number of businesses, the big eats up the little, right? So they were talking about, well, who do you like to do business with? And how does that look like here? And that was the interesting thing. And a common theme is, you know, at the end of the day, you may have the most expensive tire, you may have the best deal on the tire, but especially in Montana, it's who has the relationship with the customer. Who are you going to trust? And that's who you're going to come back to. And that's one thing that I see in all of these sponsors on the list is these are people that they genuinely want to support the customer and be there for them. So that's one thing that I would mention is just them being able to step up. Montana Seed Trade Association, Montana Wheat and Barley Committee, those are ones that weren't there before. Gowan, I mean, even Town Pump, like they are not working directly with the grower by any means, but you know, they've got over 100 stores throughout Montana that you can pick up Coors and they want to support, they're huge supporting the food bank, and they also want to support where that came from. So that's a common thread that I see between all of these companies is that they genuinely want to be there for farmers.
Well, and of course, this wouldn't happen without the growers, the ones who host us on their farm. Some of them literally stopped their combines to be able to have
Yes.
us come and to say thank you. Mention who those growers were, who we got to see today, because, I mean, everyone's going to be harvesting here in a matter of days, but these are the ones that actually hosted us.
Well, and it was fascinating, too, because it was such a variety of different situations. We started the day at Will Roach's place. Will's story, super interesting. I mean, he's really a first-generation farmer, was able to get a summer job, put together a lease. I mean, he started from the ground up, so it was fascinating to...
And we have a full-length YouTube on him, specifically on our YouTube channel.
Yep. You can go watch
Will
that.
Roach not on the payroll at Northern Ag Network, even though he's constantly being interviewed.
It is surprising.
I don't know
Paid
what
him
we're
in beer today.
Yeah, I don't
okay,
know
guys?
what we're going to do
We paid him
next
in beer
year.
last time, too.
Oh, geez. Well, and then we went to Will Good's place, which was really kind of fun because he had his 2 kids there, Allie and Elton, and gosh, hearing how, and his dad was there too.
Yeah,
so
3
really,
generations.
Yep,
3
John was there.
generations there.
Absolutely.
Yep. So that was cool. Then we went to Fred Schaefer's place. Fred had a really cool story. None of his kids came back, but he's got a grandson. Easton, is that right?
Easton Enon, yeah.
Yep. And he was there, and gosh, he just spoke praises of his grandfather. He said, I get to farm with the best farmer out there. And boy,
Yeah,
if that,
I have the best teacher in the world. I thought he was going to make me cry.
That
It
was
was
so
so
cool.
sweet.
oh, yeah.
It was awesome to hear.
Also, putting this out there, Fred Schaefer might have the best shelter belt in the state of Montana.
Never seen one like it. You'll never see another one like it.
And ladies and gentlemen, that is coming from a commercial flower farmer. So this girl knows her plants.
There's some
So
nice trees.
We should put that that up there, actually. Who, if anyone can challenge that shelter belt, yes, we would love to see it. So that was awesome. Then we went to Dave and Kyle Juelf's place, and I saw Coulter. I've never seen Colton fangirl so hard over the equipment, and it wasn't just Colton; it was really everyone
There
in
was
the
a
group.
few of us.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was.
I've seen dirtier equipment like in a showroom floor. The tires were clean on on tractors that were outside. There was no dirt on them. It was very impressive.
And impressive. I mean, one other thing to mention, we talk about sponsors and people knowing their customers. I mean, Jeff and Dan, and you could just see how those farmers were, really grateful and leaning so hard on that relationship. So that was cool. Then we went to Bill Nelson's place, and, Bill is the farm manager. So a little bit different situation there. He's been managing the place for 12 years, it sounded like. And
yeah, that was interesting to hear about the Gruel family's operation, who are really more in the cattle business, or as much in the cattle business as the farming side.
Yeah, winter graze their wheat fields, and not just a small operation either. That sounded like they had several thousand head of cows that they bring in the winter to graze them. Very impressive.
Easy to know which fields are theirs because there's the ones that are fenced.
The thing I thought was cool, speaking about the Helena relationship, so I looked on the shop wall there, and they had a list of all the important phone numbers. It had some header on it. It didn't say emergency contacts, but it had some header. There was 2 Helena reps as in the list of here's the owner's phone number. Here is the
911.
Yes.
Dan Brattain.
Yeah, you literally had Dan Brattain. You had Jeff Reardon on there, just as they were an emergency contact. That speaks bounds about their
Having
relationship.
gone to college with Dan, I cannot imagine him being someone to call in case
Anyone's
of emergency.
It's usually him calling you in case of emergency,
Yeah, I
right?
can't imagine what that emergency would have been in those days. Yeah.
oh my gosh. Yeah, you just hope our my clients do they really see me as so pivotal to what they do that you want to support them. But yeah, you're right. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Then we finished the day at Steve Scheffel's place right there along the railroad. Fun to hear the story about his family starting in Washington. And then he said first they got off the railroad, and the first 2 years was the best years in
50-year reigns.
50-year reigns, 2 years in a row, and they thought they landed in paradise. Ha ha ha! But they're still there.
Not paradise, just Great Falls.
90 years later, they're still there. So there you go.
It was a cool day, a special day, and we get to do it all over again. On Thursday, we get to be in Conrad and visit with 5 more growers. Well, between Conrad and Oilmont, really. So that's going to be
Conrad in Canada.
Yeah. So it's just fun to be able to do this. And then we'll do the same thing again in August. We'll be in Culbertson.
And it's just amazing. I mean, no 2 farms are the same. No stories are the same. I hope that we were able to pick up some stories, and share with people. So hopefully people got some ideas, and hopefully we can continue carrying the joy across Montana.
You bet. Well, as we wrap up this segment, I want to hear a highlight from everyone today. And you can decide what the highlight is. I mean, we already mentioned the shelter belt. I know that's up on Amelia's list. But what was a highlight from today's tour?
I'm going to jump in here. I think my highlight is I was able to talk with Fred Schaefer last night before we got out to his spot, and was just asking him some kind of routine questions and trying to get a feel for the operation. And he said, well, I have my grandson out here who's partners with me. And he said he was his partner, not just working for him, his partner. And we get out there today, and you could tell that it was just as much of a partnership as it was a grandson and grandfather relationship. And that was just so cool to be able to tell them thank you. Fred was talking about he's been farming his entire life, so pushing 70 years if I had to guess. And he's just a wealth of knowledge. And I don't know if he's ever had 30 people come out and say thank you for what you're doing. And so I know that made him proud and happy, but then to have his grandson who's kind of taking over the ropes, to see that and know that people care, I think we just kind of instilled some confidence in him to know that he's doing the right thing and kind of making the right decision, because he does have different avenues. He could go somewhere else and find a career, but he decided to come back to the operation. So that was my favorite part to see.
I don't know if I can pick one favorite part, if I'm being honest. There was a nugget, honestly, at every stop. I think it's been awesome now that we've been at the Sip and Dip for a little while. We've been getting to hear from a lot of people who went on the tour, their favorite spots or what they really got from it. And just the resounding kind of sentiment is just this blew away my expectations. We got to see so many different people. I heard several people say today, oh, I've always heard that guy's name. I've never met him. So I heard lots of that today, where it was just a new way to connect with people, especially for the ag businesses businesses that aren't connecting with them in person. You know, maybe they're calling them to work on their insurance policy or that kind of thing. So great connection points.
Well, no, and I don't know if it was a favorite moment, but it was a thought-provoking moment for me, Coulter, and that was when we were at Will Good's place, and you know, he's standing there. His dad's across the way. He's got his son and daughter, and he talked about, you know, we've got all this great equipment now, which that was a theme. We learned all about the precision technology and the advances in equipment from one generation to the next. But then he mentioned how, well, you know, it takes a while before the kids can actually run the equipment, and by the time they can start running the equipment and getting involved, then they're, you know, often interested in girls or sports or something else. So then you got to figure out how to get them back in, and that just made me think about our industry. Like, how do we, you know, it's not like just, okay, everybody go pick rock and everybody's involved, or like at Fred's place, okay, everybody, you got to weed every day by hand. There's not something that every kid can do to stay involved. So that just made me think hard. How do we, you know, raising the next generation, get them involved without, you know, ruining $1 million piece of equipment or what have you.
That's what I thought was interesting when Will Good was talking about, you know, he used to start hauling grain in 2-ton trucks, and that's just what he ran at age 10, 11, and 12. But now they're running full semis and grain carts, and you know, that's a pretty expensive machine and piece of equipment. So you can't just throw a 10 and 11-year-old kid in the truck and let them run. You got to wait till they get up there, and yeah, that can kind of steer their career path and direction and their thought process a little bit. I've never heard anyone really talk about that before.
On that same trend, if you look at the growers we had today, the average age of a farmer in Montana is what?
58,
I think.
I think almost all of the growers we visited today fell below that. I mean, the ones
Pretty
like the main
close.
generation,
Yeah.
like we had a lot of really pretty young growers, which is fantastic to see. Like that's uplifting in by itself.
Well, and we talked about having like Will Roach, for example.
Yeah.
You know, we went out and visited with him last summer, and just to see how excited he was last summer when we talked to him. And I thought this summer he was even more excited, and he had more acres. He's put more leases together. And so just being able to see his growth within just 1 year and see how he's still moving along. And I mean, he's been making headlines on a press release from Montana State University talking about some of their mite issues he had, and it's not slowing him down. He's like, yep, that happened, but we'll be better next year. And so very exciting, and I think just optimistic for everybody to see, especially the agribusiness folks that don't necessarily get to step out of the office every single day and come out to these farms, and it just maybe changed their perspective a little bit.
And considering how tough the last few years have been, these guys did not focus on that. I mean, they all mentioned some of the struggles they've had or what's been challenging. All of them were optimistic. Grain prices will get better. I think we just saw the worst of it. It's coming back. It's going to get better. Boy, this rain we got was a $1 million rain. Like, considering it's been really tough here, none of them focused on that. They might have mentioned it, but it wasn't a poor me, life's so hard. It was like, aren't we lucky to be an ag? Aren't we lucky that we have next year?
You bet. Well, I appreciate you guys helping us kick this off. I just feel more excited listening to even you talk about it. And, you know, we titled this podcast Next Year Country. And, boy, this is Next Year Country in the Golden Triangle. But to see that optimism for everyone, like you mentioned, Amelia, I mean, it really hits. But thank you for what you did to pull this off. It was a heck of a time.
Awesome. Yep. Thank you to all the sponsors.
Yeah.
You guys were great.
Follow along on social media, too. There's been tons of pictures posted, so you guys can feel like you're part of the tour, even if you weren't along.
Well, Colton, one of the moments I really enjoyed today, and it was kind of a throwaway moment, and I mentioned it to you and Jeff Reardon earlier, but we were there at the Guelphs farm, and someone asked the question of what's the most unique crop you've raised? And they're raising a lot of different things. It's not just wheat, barley, pulses. I mean, they've got mustard and flax and all kinds of things. And Kyle thought for a second. He said, well, we raised dryland corn for several years. And that just struck me. Like, if we were doing this show in Iowa, people's jaws would have just dropped to the
They would have
floor
lost
that
their mind.
corn is the most unique thing we've raised. And I just got a good chuckle out of that.
It's like walking into Kansas and saying, yep, I have feeder cattle. It's different.
Yeah. We got Jeff Reardon joining us from Helena Agri-Enterprises and Dan Brattain. So thanks for joining us. Go ahead, Jeff.
So I had kind of forgotten about their corn days, and when he said that, I was like, that was probably the most unique thing we had ever been involved with. It was fun for us to do something different. And
Yeah, probably something you don't have to deal with every day, right?
exactly, yeah. And we had some experts in our area to turn to. Barkley Norby and Willie Kruger helped us through it. We had some corn experienced people that helped us, and we had a lot of fun with it. And I feel like they raised great corn for dryland corn. It just wasn't as profitable for them. And
Yeah, I mean, that even like looking back, that popped us into, we're traditionally dry fertilizer up here. There's some liquid, but not a lot. But them just doing that brought us into liquid fertilizer, more biologicals, micronutrients, like research, more humics, just everything, just with that little corn experiment for those couple years. And
For sure.
it was cool.
Yeah, it was probably a lot of fun for you guys. Had to kind of rework the wheel a little bit.
A little
and
out of the
something
box,
different.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, it's different
Yep.
looking up a chemical label and you're looking for corn versus oats, barley, or wheat.
It caught people off guard today when Kyle said corn, didn't it? I
Yep.
could see the looks around the shop.
But it made total sense. Like, yeah, in this part of the world, you bet. People think you're crazy if you
Yeah.
try to do that. Well, and I want to get your guys' thoughts just about this event in general. For the Farmers Tour, this is our 4th year of doing it. Jeff, what did you think when you were told that we're going to give this a try? I mean, you guys gave a lot to this in terms of dollars, in terms of manpower, hours. I mean, was it worth it?
Yeah, so it was super. So I think most of the farms we went to today are long-term relationships for our group. These are families that have done multiple generations we've done business with, and a lot of times when you spend that much time together, you don't say thank you enough. Probably it's something I always remind myself, we need to say thanks for this and that, and this was kind of specifically a thanks day, and that was great. It was great just to say thank you to all those families from us and Helena Ag. Super.
Well,
I thought we had a great day, and you guys do a wonderful job running your program, and you're
Thank you for
excellent.
saying that.
Well,
you do an
and we
excellent
need
job.
to say a big thank you to you guys and Helena Agri-Enterprises, of course, our title sponsor of the For the Farmers Tour. It wouldn't have been possible without you guys. But I think today, one of the exciting parts, I guess, for us, maybe the easy part, was you put the tour together. You picked the farmers, you picked the stops and the locations. So we were kind of just along for your ride. But for me, Coulter, I think what stood out was seeing their relationship with those growers that we visited. I mean, you guys knew more about their fields than they did part of the time. And it was evident, just how much they rely on you and your guys' partnerships. And Dan, we talked a few minutes ago about Will Roach and how we went out to his place last year, and so got to know him pretty well. And I mean, he can talk days about your guys' relationship and how you've pretty much helped him put this whole operation together. How was it for you to be able to go on the tour today and just know that those connections are truly paying off?
Oh, it's great to see, especially with his case, just a guy succeeding, like just American dream succeeding, building, he's got some great foundation and great support and good role models. But I mean, he's got a lot of weight on his shoulders, and he's doing it, and it's cool to showcase that, because I feel like a lot of our customers are like that, like Fred today, a lot of family death. He was the only one to really come back and be able to keep the farm going, and the same thing, got, 9 grandchildren, but one stepping up, keeping the farm going. It's cool to, show the burdens that these farmers do carry and trying to keep their legacies alive and just thrive and be good stewards of the land too. So today was awesome. Today was a great showcase.
How great was Fred Schaefer discussing being a kid hoeing those shelter belts?
I know, right?
Right? That's the best shelter belt in Montana. I have
We
anybody
already put it
yet
out on the podcast.
to try
Challenge
to
anyone.
find anyone with a better shelter belt. And I remember when I was there during the pine beetle epidemic, we were scared, what could happen here? Could we lose this? And they sprayed that shelter belt religiously for months, and I don't think they lost a tree during that whole thing. So that was great for me to hear that story, and we go back a long ways with them.
Well, and a big part of the tour here today, was going around talking with the growers and a little bit asking them, what they're seeing in the field, how this year's been. Of course, we could talk days on a lot of the challenges and whatnot, but you guys travel the country just as much, or if not more than anybody else, going from grower to grower, field to field. I'm curious, we can start with you, Jeff. What have you been kind of seeing here as we're approaching harvest? A few of them were cutting today, but still a week or so out for a lot of these guys. What are you kind of seeing right now? Was this $1 billion rain? That was kind of the story we heard today.
So we were pretty much in the lower part of the triangle, and to tell you the truth, it had been such cold weather and such a brutal spring that our winter wheat crop, it's going to be difficult to have above an average crop, I think, on the winter wheat. There was so many setbacks for it, but I have never seen a spring crops look as good as I ever have in this country. We have farmers that their spring wheat's going to beat their winter wheat in yield, and that just doesn't happen. That just doesn't usually happen, but we had a pretty solid 8 inches through the storms through June, and that doesn't really happen very often either, right? So I think we're going to have phenomenal spring crops, and I think the winter wheat's going to be okay. It's going to be average.
Better than we thought it would have been the
Way
15th
better.
of May, to be
Yes,
fair.
yes.
Yeah. Dan, just thinking back today, at the start of the day, I was asking about some of the growers that we were going to see, and you were telling me a little bit about them. And two phrases kept coming up. One was multi-generational. These guys have been here for generations and are working on getting into the next generation. And the other phrase you kept using was they farm right. They do it right. They're good operators. They do what needs to be done. And what's that way? All day long, we saw guys that are just doing it right. So curious, as you think about your growers, and specifically the 6 that we saw today, what sets them apart? What makes them a guy that just does it right?
They might have a little more dedication to their farm, and whether some people, their health gets in the way, or family affairs, or something just lessens another person's ability to maybe do what these guys are doing. They just honestly care, and they want their work to show how much they care, and they want their name to be out there, because some of their worst looking fields, they're always like, oh, it's right next to the road, everyone's going to see this, I hate this, yada yada. They just care so much about how they're perceived and their farm looks, and just want to do their neighbors right too. So they don't want weed problems. They want good fences. They want clean fields so their neighbors don't have issues. It's hard to describe. They just do it right. I don't know how else to describe it, but they have definitely kept the farm alive, and there's a reason why they're still farming.
Well, and especially still farming after some really difficult years. It's been 5 or 6 years of challenges, be it input costs, grain prices, or drought too. But we were just speaking earlier about how no one was really bearish or negative about this. Everyone was optimistic about the future. Maybe that's what it takes. If you're going to be a dryland farmer in this part of the world, you got to believe next year is going to be better. That level of optimism was very present today.
It was. It's just been challenging. The price, when you've got $4.50 winter wheat and a drought and freezing every night, it just was a challenging time for everybody. And I feel like we've had great moisture here. We're going to seed into great moisture this fall. Things look good. There's, a little disappointment in these fertilizer prices seem to stay strong. The world events are affecting these fertilizer prices so big. It's just, we had an $850 a ton urea in the spring. We're down to probably the mid 5s or less now.
Yeah.
Now the conflict has ramped back up again. It's already gone up again, but the nitrogen price is down. It is way down. They're extremely frustrated with the phosphate numbers. Our phosphate prices continue to elevate every year. And I think Kyle did a great job of explaining why they look to something to supplement their program, is to try to start saving on something with the phosphate. That phosphate number just continues to go up every year. It's short in the world. We don't have any new phosphate mines coming on in this part of the world. So we're going to be dependent on imported phos. And that's scary for farmers to know that we just don't domestically produce enough fertilizer. Same with nitrogen. This part of the world, we're extremely dependent on our Canadian nitrogen plants, and that relationship's been difficult right now. With the tariff situation, we've avoided it. Fertilizer's been kept out of that for the most part. Whether that's going to continue, none of us really know right now where that is all headed with Canada, but frankly, we need their nitrogen.
We could fill a whole new podcast and speculate on what's going to happen with geopolitical issues and whatnot. But Dan, I thought this morning, we had you on the Voices of Montana talk show, and I thought you had a great point when you were talking about the high fertilizer prices and these high input costs, and you said that nobody wins in this situation. And as the company that kind of provides that service, you guys said you don't even win too. You don't want to see that, because you're the ones that have to go out to the growers and tell them this is what the price is, this is what's going to happen, and that's not a win-win situation for anybody.
No, luckily, Helena is really big where they can absorb some of that inventory costs. But still, every branch is reliant on controlling their inventory and making every company profitable. But you look at those mom and pop independents where, maybe they can't finance enough to cover their customers, and then all of a sudden they're in a bad buying situation. But then what? Now they don't have fertilizer to sell. And so it's just a really goofy deal where, yes, totally, high price is bad for everybody. We're totally behind that.
Yeah, well, and I also thought another interesting point that you brought up, too, when we were talking about the industry as a whole, and it's been a tough couple of years, but Helena is investing, especially in Great Falls, pretty heavily here and trying to ramp up and make sure that they're staying ahead of times, and I thought that spoke volume to your dedication, to the company's dedication, to farmers in the area.
Yeah, no, I mean, 100%, as we saw today, they're breaking ground on a multi-million-dollar fertilizer hub for central Montana for all of Helena to pull from. That means wholesale and us as a retailer, where we can hopefully get better pricing for our farmers, buy in bulk, not so reliant on trucking and other activities like that, but just be able to store more and buy right at the right time to help these producers make money. And Helena seems to be really doubling down on investment. So, I mean, they're investing in not only infrastructure, but people, equipment. They want us to have, nice spreaders, do accurate jobs, sprayers, and just a lot of stuff. Jeff can probably talk more since he's the guru of the fertilizer plant. But yeah, I'm just really impressed with what Helena's been doing with their investment, especially to central Montana and the whole region, really.
Well, guys, before we let you go, I want to know what your highlight was from the day. We got to do a lot of fun stuff today, see some great things, meet great people, but what really sticks out to you? What are you going to tell the folks that didn't get to go on the tour today from Helena about what they missed?
I just thought the radio people were super great.
I love hearing that.
We did not pay him to say that.
So I really enjoyed you guys' how you run your program today. It's a little bit of a different world than what we live in on our day-to-day grind of fertilizer and ag retail, but I thought you guys did a great job of making people be comfortable speaking about what they have. And you think about the guys we saw speaking to a group like that, they don't do things like that typically. And Fred Schaefer telling about his history of his shelter belt, the good family we've known forever, and the different things we've done with them and stories. And it was just good to be with those families that we spend so much time with, and such a different environment. And like I said, you guys do such a great job making everybody comfortable talking about their own place where they don't even realize that they're talking about it. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
That.
Well, it sure
a
was.
lot of fun.
It wouldn't have happened without you, without Helena. Dan, any highlights from today that stick out?
I echo Jeff on that. Like you guys, the Northern Ag Network, Amelia, John, and Colton, Coulter, Courtney, everybody, Adriana, just everybody did a great job. And it's cool. Like when we showed up to a farm, you had this banner, and every time the banner would come out, you'd see umpteen different sponsors with that. And then all of a sudden the swag bags would come out, and the farmer's just like, whoa. Like, that's a lot of stuff. Like, how many people you got out here? You want more stuff? Like, we're here for you. We're here to thank you. So I thought that was super cool. And I know our guys appreciated that. And yeah, thank you to you for showcasing our customers and Helena Agra. And
yeah, you guys did a great job of showcasing Helena today for us too. So thank you. It was good. Yeah.
It's easy to do, and you've got great people and great growers to help do. It's not hard to showcase that. So thank you guys for what you did. Thank you for all the work you did to pull this off. It was a great day.
Likewise. Thank you guys for all your work.
Well, we sure appreciate Helena for what they did to help us pull this event off, and all of our great sponsors. It's been a lot of fun. And, as we wrap today's show up, we always do end with the markets. And so we did want to spend a little bit of time talking markets. And one of our favorite things really is being able to speculate wildly. So I thought, what guests could we have that would help us to just speculate as wildly as possible? So I called my best friend Jim Woodring, and I said, you're in Great Falls. Why don't you come down to the Sip and Dip, and we can speculate on about anything we could name. So, Jim, thank you for coming down here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Well, and of course, the reason Jim is in Great Falls, somewhat indefinitely, is you and your wife, Kim, just welcomed your first baby a little bit earlier than expected. So you're in Great Falls for a little bit, but we're pretty excited that Teddy has made his appearance.
We're pretty excited that he has too. I mean, we get 24/7 daycare here for about 3 months, so it's a pretty handy feature. I mean, comes with one hell of a bill, but it's a pretty good feature.
You're not going to like that in a couple months when they get the bill.
Well, it's kind of like just leasing a baby. You're kind of testing it out, see if you really want to commit before you take it home.
Well, our joke has been that everybody else gets a diaper change and a car seat test, and good luck, kids, and off they go. We get 3 months of training from the best babysitters in the world. And on the upside, everybody else gets to spend the first 2 months figuring out who their kid is. We'll already know what he likes and doesn't like by the time we get him home. So, it might be worth it.
Yeah, well, we're sure excited for you and Kim. I'm very excited to go get to meet him in person tomorrow. That'll be the highlight of my week, I'm sure. But, we want to talk about some of what's going on with these grain markets. I think Jim works for Stockman Bank, manages the Cut Bank branch, and, of course, farms with his father-in-law, Mark Suda. And so, Jim, you have some real great perspectives on this. But before we start speculating on the markets, we're going to focus on something more important, and that's Bobcat football. It's coming up soon. We're just a hair over a month out.
Preseason polls are out.
Without wildly speculating on the Bobcats this year. We're ranked
Preseason
number
polls
one in the
number
Big
one.
Sky,
Yep.
FCS. What do you think, Jim? Well, what's your forecast for the 26th season?
Oh, they're winning all the way through.
Back to back.
Now that Bobby's back, defense is going to be lights out.
Bobby Daly, that is. Not
Yeah.
the lesser Bobby.
Not the lesser Bobby. Our Bobby is better, and everyone needs to know that. You should look up that hashtag of Butter Bobby.
And not to bring up the past, but there's no NDSU in the program anymore. So
We do get another crack at him in 27.
Yeah, next
Yep,
year.
that's right.
Yep,
That's
in
right.
Vegas.
I mean,
Yep.
I hope that we get a little
taste.
a little taste there.
yeah.
I'd love to take him down.
Totally agree with you. I think the only one that could stand in the Bobcats' way is the Bobcats, which we have seen them do before in the past.
Almost happened. It
Most
almost
of my
happened.
childhood and the entire extra 2 overtimes.
Yep. But they've reloaded a lot of returning seniors. You know, last year was probably the single biggest anomaly in my Bobcat fandom to see us actually have a defensive backfield, to have cornerbacks that can stop passes. I didn't even know we were allowed to do that in MSU football.
I just thought that those guys didn't want to come to Montana, I guess. I just figured they didn't exist. They wouldn't go like anywhere north of Oklahoma.
To be fair, they all did leave, so you know, we have that challenge.
They tell us the next ones are even better. So
I'll believe it.
fingers crossed.
Speculate wildly on that one.
Well, we are, as you know, big Bobcat fans here on Northern Egg Network and Next Year Country. I want to do a pre-Cat Grizz game, maybe predicting the field for the FCS playoffs as we get there.
We're going to have to add in some NFL too here as we start talking Denver Broncos. I know, Jim, you might want to get in on that too.
Well, you know, I mean, my Seahawks are on top of the
As
top of the
world
heap at the
champs,
moment.
yeah.
So, I mean, your Broncos can do whatever they want.
Well, okay. Well, now turning us to the grain markets, like I said we would. Jim, this has been an interesting year. I mean, weather-wise, of course, but the market has finally bounced back here, and looks like there's some potential over the next year for this thing to increase even a little more. When you look at reduced acres in the U.S., in Canada, lower production. Australia is going to have issues with this El Nino. Conflict in the Black Sea. The Strait of Hormuz has thrown a lot of issues in there. There seems to be some upside. As a farmer yourself and as a banker who's advising farmers, what do you think?
You know, I think there is some actual upside. And the downside is that it always comes at somebody else's expense. So somebody out there is getting hosed. And at the moment, I think the thing that's helping us most really isn't the international things. It's the fact that it's so dang dry down south. So I think that has really buoyed the winter wheat side of things. And it's bleeding over into the spring wheat side of things. And up in this country, we're largely just small grains. You know, I mean, we have plenty of pulses and some other things we can grow, but she's too dang dry up here. So pretty well got to have grain.
Well, we've been talking about the El Nino effects, and they continue to kind of report each week as we see the crop progress and conditions report, and they're talking about it's kind of above expectations. It's going to be more drastic than what they thought. How much of an effect will that truly have as producers in this area are starting to look at the 2027 growing season as far as making their decisions? Is that going to weigh in pretty heavily?
You know, I think that it's probably going to shift quite a few acres into winter wheat. In our part of the country, anyways, that comes down to fall moisture, and we actually have it for once.
Yeah.
Like the last 3 or 4 years, we haven't put in a lick of winter wheat. Mark's not a huge winter wheat guy anyway, so not a big deal. But I mean, wall-to-wall spring wheat is kind of uncharacteristic for us. And so what I've seen is that, you know, the last several years, even if we'd wanted to, and there was a couple of years the price said we should, but it was so dry I couldn't have kept the plow on the ground if I wanted to. I would have just sprinkled seed across the top of dry dirt. We wouldn't have had anything. This year, there's actually moisture in the soil profile. The reservoirs are starting to fill. Several of the springs that had dried up are starting to hit again. Like, there's reason to have some hope for next year. Whether this weather pattern holds or not, our heavy northern soils really can do some good here. So, you know, I think that there will be more winter wheat put in than normal, especially given the price. It yields better than the spring crops. There's a lot of reasons to go ahead and go put it in. It is a little more expensive to grow. That's its own can of worms. But I think that you'll see a little bit of this country anyways. Some of those barley acres where guys just didn't know what to do, those will probably go to winter wheat. Some of the spring wheat acres, they'll probably go back to winter wheat. I think you'll see a little bit of a push towards that.
What about the pulses? I mean, I know the market for pulses this year just hit the tank. I mean, last year was a big year in lentils. I think even in your part of the world. But does that come back? Does it just depend on the market? Does it work agronomically enough it stays in rotations?
It depends on how you look at it. The thing that most guys, like working at the bank, I think that the mistake most guys make is pulse crops are not a cash crop. They are a contract crop. They are a specialty crop. I've got a couple of horror stories of guys with an absolute pile of lentils on hand. And when was the last time you ate a lentil? you kind of got to have a place to go with it. That's largely the subcontinent and India. And they had a couple of good lentil crops. And they're also pretty protectionist. So that it's peaks and valleys. It's either good or it's bad. And you better have a contract to get rid of it. Another characteristic that lentils have is they tend to oxidize. And although it doesn't degrade their food quality at all, we're one of the few nations on earth, us in Canada, that actually do a chemical test of what our grains have. The rest of them just have a postcard. This is what it should look like. And if it doesn't look like that, it's feed. So they oxidize, they lose their color, and even though nutritionally they haven't changed at all, they look different. And so a lot of that stuff will get rejected once it hits the international market. I think everybody else knows how to do it, but that's a little bit of a protectionist policy that's left inside. As far as your other pulses goes, like we go through quite a few peas. We're pretty good pea country, especially the places like our farm's a little too dry, but you don't have to go too far north or east or south, really, to get to places where they can run a pulse rotation and they can get pulse grain fallow and start to get a pretty good deal. I think those will continue to go. They're a good way to diversify. There's some good contracts out there. When you have a good contract, you can get good insurance. This year, one of the things we saw was garbanzo beans, so chickpeas. There were some really good chickpea contracts out there. It was just too dang dry this spring to seed them. In fact, Kim ran around writing prevent plant letters on dry land farms of it was too dry to seed garbanzo beans. They're a high cost input crop. And so a lot of those guys dialed away from that, got out of their insurance contracts, used the act of God and those kind of things to get out of it. And then the rain came 2 weeks later. I was just in today. I was wandering out in some probably 40 bushel chickpeas, which is a hell of a crop. It's not record breaking or anything like that, but that is a crop you can flat out make money on, especially with a contract.
I'm curious, what are you telling producers right now in a year like this, where this week and I guess last week we did see a pretty big swing on the futures board, 50 cent in the winter wheat contracts. And so now we are starting to see, like you said earlier, a $7 price on there. But just a few weeks ago, it wasn't that high. And so it still has been a challenging year. How important is it to diversify your operation right now? And what are you telling producers to look at as they start to make plans? And obviously they have to get through this harvest first before they start looking at next year. But as a banker, and I guess is their kind of financial person, what are you telling them to do right now?
I've been echoing that it hasn't rained for 5 years. This is the first time it's rained since 2020. I mean, last year we had a heck of a crop, but we did it on 3.43 inches. It just fell perfectly at the right time. I mean, 3.43 inches, like I said, biggest spring wheat crop we've ever grown. Couldn't have planted winter wheat if we wanted to. There wasn't an ounce of moisture left. So what I've been telling guys after this string of dry year after dry year after dry year, it's all expense control. Go to what you know, stick with the things that you know work and that you can kind of dial in perfectly, and then just really look at your inputs and what you can do to shave things. Like one of the things we've done, really leaned on our soil tests, really looked into our nitrogen. Nitrogen's been bouncing all over the board. So how do we cut as much of that as possible? And so we went to where, you know what, we're going to be lucky if we get 30 bushel, so we're fertilizing for 30 bushel. We're going to make sure we don't go backwards, but I ain't putting any more money on that thing than I have to. Another thing we did on our operation, we bought a weed it, tried to keep our chemical bill down as little as possible, using some of these emerging technologies to really take what was once the largest bill on the entire farm and make it kind of middle of the pack. It all comes down to expense control. And one thing I've learned on the bank side is the best farmers have the hardest time with the checkbook. They give those crops everything they need, and it is beautiful. And it's kind of heartbreaking to see guys who do everything right not be rewarded for it in the end.
What do you think about, with your banker hat on here, some of these government programs? And specifically, I'm thinking this fall, guys are going to get a PLC check for the 2025 crop. Maybe another government aid program that's kind of in the works right now. Are guys dependent on that to be able to go again in 27, or it was $1 billion rain that they got in May, and they're going to be okay this year, and that'll be just gravy, whatever they get from the government?
I've always viewed the PLC. So when I first started banking, things were a little tough. 2020, we'd come off a couple of okay years, prices in the tank, a few different things. I always said there that basically like you farm to break even and the PLC check is your paycheck. It comes 18 months later, but that's your paycheck. The way that things are structured, the PLC math is relatively easy to figure out. And I think the market has figured out PLC math. So even though we raised the reference price, we did all those things, the input side of things has all raised to vacuum it up. Now they just assume the PLC is going to be there. They don't need to pay us for it. The government will pay us for it. So essentially, $6.45 on wheat's your reference price. Anytime that wheat is below $6.45, you're operating below your cost of production, and you're going to go backwards. You've got to either have excess yield to get ahead, or you've got to hope that the price is above $6.45. Like those are the two ways to get ahead on wheat. I don't think that they have to have those to be able to farm in 2027. And on the bank side, we look at them as, like I said, they're 18 months, right? So they're a year behind. So yeah, we figure them in and they help, but it doesn't really make the decision yes or no. It doesn't make or break anything. However, a lot of times, like I said, it kind of their paycheck. It's kind of what helps.
Yeah.
It doesn't really make or break it, but it does help.
Well, as we wrap this thing up, Jim, I know you guys are nearing up on harvest here. What are you thinking of this crop this year? And as we look towards next year, speculating on the market, are you optimistic on the future?
You know, I'm actually very optimistic and a little bit on the market. That's largely outside of our control, but I am very optimistic on the conditions. This has been a reset year. So yeah, we're not going to cut a huge crop or anything like that, but we're going to cut above average by a little bit and have a price that actually makes that worthwhile. We're probably going to be able to make some money on this deal, put a little bit away, make some improvements that we haven't touched for 5 years, do some of the delayed maintenance we have. And then with the price where it's at, I think that makes it a little easier to keep producing going into 2027. As long as you can start without being behind the 8 ball, I think life will be pretty good. So no, I do think that whether this market holds or not, there's pretty good hope for the future. Our soil profile's refilled. We can survive another 5-year drought. I sure hope that we don't have one. If I had some wood to knock on, I would. But I think that we're set for success here going forward for a little bit anyway.
Well, Jim, thank you for joining us here. Thanks for sharing some of those insights, boy, some great thoughts. And boy, thank you to all our sponsors, Helena Agri-Enterprises, all the growers today that made this possible. It was a big day up here, and thankful that we get to do it again. Colton, any final thoughts?
Yeah, you know, we probably can't go through the whole podcast without thanking Andy Schwab. Andy stayed back
Good
in
job.
the studio in Billings, and he's really allowed us to play all day. He's been covering all the programs and whatnot. And it's our first podcast without him on here, so
It is,
I'm sure
yeah.
he'll be a little sad for that, but appreciate all the work he's done to keep the radio programs alive and keep the dead air off the air and let us have fun up here with all these producers.
You bet. Yeah. Thank you to Andy. He is the unsung soldier of Northern Ag Network this week. Just a one-man team. So appreciate him a bunch. Well, thank you for joining us here for this episode of Next Year Country. We'll see you down the road.